Exclusive Ace, he put out two videos. Two videos on what Modern Warfare 3 did right and what Modern Warfare 3 did wrong. This one he titled Modern Warfare 3 is the best COD in years, ? Final review, part 1, what they did right. So let's just get into it. Let's see what he says. And then we're going to do it all in one go. We're going to watch the positive one, then the negative one. And I'm going to give you my take on everything that he says and whether I agree or disagree with him. What's up, guys? My name is Ace.
What's guys?
Oh, I cut off.
What's guys? My name is Ace, and it's that time of the year where the current Call of Duty game is coming to an end. The new one is right around the corner. So in today's video, we're going to be starting off my final review with what Modern Warfare 3 did right. The things I like about Modern Warfare.
So the reason why I'm starting with this one is because my review yesterday that I put out on the main channel, I would say is mostly negative. And I wanted to start out with a positive one here.
Warfare 3, and then of course, just like I do every year, there will be another video within the next few days at least that's going to be covering the flip side of what Modern Warfare 3 did wrong. Now, before we get into the list, just a few disclaimers here. First off, this of course is going to be a very subjective video. A lot of the stuff here you may disagree with, and that's totally fine. These are my honest opinions. I'm going to be brutally honest about the things I like, as well as the things I don't like about this game. And if you disagree with any point,
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be brutally honest about what I disagree and what I agree with you. So I hope that's fair.
That's totally fine. I'd love to hear what you guys think in those comments down below. Also, keep in mind, this is really just focused on the 6v6 multiplayer portion of the game.
I figured that's what
I buy and play the game for. I'm not here to review campaign or zombies or anything outside of just 6v6 multiplayer.
Don't worry, I took care of the campaign review yesterday.
There's often pros and cons to a particular section that I'm talking about. So just because I put something in the good video doesn't mean...
Good question, user. Why is Troy Marshall shown in a Metro Police gear? I believe that is for one mission in particular. So yeah, I wouldn't
that I won't have anything critical to say about it in the next video. But since I got them separated, today we're just focusing on the positive. And with that out of the way, let's dive right into this. And let's just talk about the first thing that I like about Modern Warfare 3 in general. And that is the fact that it's just got unapologetically fast-paced gameplay. It was very obvious that that's what they were leaning toward. Yeah. I think especially coming off of Black Ops 6 is going for as well. They wanted to flip the table a little bit and really reward more aggressive play. And at least in my eyes, based on my experiences, they absolutely nailed that. In Modern Warfare 3, we've had really good movement options that are great for aggressively challenging fights. So you have your slide cancels, your jump shots. We've got really solid strafe potential, at least on many of the guns in the game, depending on the setups that you're using. We've also got excellent attachment options that don't significantly harm our gun's ability to aggressively...
I'm curious what he says about all the attachments in game.
Challenge people. We got covert sneakers in the game, which does allow you to move around the map very aggressively without revealing your real-time location through walls.
So that is one worry I'm having with Black Ops 6 after that blog post yesterday. Those footsteps were loud, and if footsteps are too loud and the counter to them, like dead silence, doesn't work properly, the movement and speed of the game are going to slow down substantially, and that's not a good thing.
To enemy players. And while yes, the covert sneakers were definitely a crutch in this game, and ideally I would have liked to see the base footsteps lower so you don't feel the need to run covert sneakers, at least in respawn game modes. At the end of the day, it's a very welcome crutch for me because it allows you to play very aggressively, and that's what I look for and what I like about Call of Duty, is not feeling like if you sprint, you're putting yourself
at a... Actually, do I still have this open? Someone in chat is saying that devs confirmed that the footsteps will be the same as the second week. They're not anymore. This is what footsteps, like, we might as well talk about this right now. This is what footsteps are going to be like. Listen to this. That's your own footsteps. This is enemies. Loud. Anyway, back to Ace's video. Where the heck is it there?
Massive disadvantage, whereas if you sit in a corner, you're giving yourself a huge advantage because you'll be able to hear everybody coming with ease. Next, another thing I really like that they brought to the table with this game is tac stance. Not as an attachment or anything, but just as a built-in mechanic that you can swap to with most...
Okay, so they acknowledged that the footsteps in that are boosted for showcase the purpose. That's fair. I would have assumed that anyway. That's a good point. Arm. I'm just going to call you Arm.
To the guns in the game at any point mid-gameplay. Admittedly, when I first saw this mechanic, I thought it was going to be a useless gimmick that nobody would care about, but it didn't take long for my opinion to change on that. I think it was an excellent addition to the game overall.
So that was the other question I was asking you guys before. What was the thing in Black Ops 4 where that would drastically change like the weapons in game. Like they were like conversion kits, but there was another name for them.
Absolutely needed? No, you never really needed to use tac stance. I never really felt pressured to use tac stance in any way. And I never felt it was like overpowered or anything, but it did add a nice additional layer to the gameplay. If you wanted to branch out and go with a tac stance build, which I often did throughout this game's life cycle, it was really fun to do that, and it offered a nice, unique, and balanced experience. There were some upsides to using tac stance, but also some downsides, and I think they handled that mechanic extremely well. And I'm honestly a little sad to see this not return as a default mechanic.
What are your thoughts on that?
To Black Ops 6, because I did enjoy it in Modern Warfare 3. Additionally, on that topic of sort of general gameplay with Modern Warfare 3, for me, the gunfights tend to feel really great. I like the fact that they went with a slightly slower time to kill this time around.
I still think it's too fast.
Although, like I've always said, I'm perfectly fine with either style of time to kill in Call of Duty, whether it's a little bit faster like Modern Warfare 2 or a bit slower like Modern Warfare 3. I'm totally fine adapting to either style, and I think it was a nice change of pace that rewards good evasion as well as sustained accuracy in a gunfight. And also, that slightly slower time to kill in this game did allow for more movement options to be taking place, and it did allow you to take out those people that were just sitting in a corner waiting for you to come by, because typically those players don't have the greatest gun skill, and therefore you can use your evasion and your superior aim to beat those players on a more consistent
that's why I like longer time to kill.
As for the next thing I like about Modern Warfare 3, that I know many people will disagree with, I see people posting about this quite frequently, but I'm here to share my honest opinions, and I honestly feel the weapon balance in Modern Warfare 3, at least for the Modern Warfare 3 weapons, has been pretty solid most of the year. Now, I know saying that is going to upset some people, because for many people, they truly...
It was better in multiplayer than it was in Warzone.
Believe that you can only use 2 or 3 guns in order to find success in this game, but that hasn't been my experience at all.
But multiplayer, I actually agree with that.
I'm perfectly comfortable at this point using at least like 40 or 50 weapons and performing very consistently well.
That's a lot, actually.
Now, some exceptions I'll mention here. Modern Warfare 2 guns were not balanced very well in this game for most of the life cycle. At this stage, finally toward the end of the life cycle, yeah, many of those Modern Warfare 2 guns are significant.
The only area that I disagree with that is when I'm playing Search and Destroy, there's only certain weapons that I can use that I feel like can actually compete. When I'm playing Respawn, yeah, I agree with them.
Significantly more viable, but there's still some really bad ones that I would hardly even call viable in this game. And another thing is, of course, there's always going to be a meta. There will always be a small handful of guns that rise to the top, no matter what you do. So I'm not just talking about meta guns. I'm talking about viable guns that I feel confident performing consistently well with. And in Modern Warfare 3, at least for me, there are tons of great weapon options available, and I've never really felt super locked into just using that small handful of meta guns. And this segues into the next part that I liked about Modern Warfare 3 that I did recently cover in a dedicated video. This is the sheer amount of playable content that we had access to throughout the year.
I wonder if zombies will have attachment that increase drop chance of salvage. Probably. I would assume so.
Especially when you look at the post-launch content. Even if we ignore the Modern Warfare 2 carry forward, we had an insane number of 6v6 maps. We had an insane number of weapons, especially when you factor the conversion kits in there that perform like new guns. And then when you add the...
Told you, Black Ops 4 had a bunch. Told you. But yeah, like... Actually, World War II... Sleeping on the post-launch weapons for World War II.
Modern Warfare 2 carry forward into the equation. It's almost overwhelming how much playable content we had in the game. It's the most we've ever seen in the Call of Duty franchise history for access to playable content.
But honestly, I feel like that's too many weapons. Like, if we're being honest, having over 150 weapons in your game, I think is too many weapons.
A single game.
Am I crazy for saying that?
And I think that's definitely a better problem to have than not enough content.
Also, this is a wild one. This is a wild one. This is the total number of new 6v6 maps, and keep in mind, when the game launched, there was none. None. Like, that's actually pretty wild.
I want to say that as well about Modern Warfare 3. They really killed it when it came to content availability.
But I guess, like, what we're looking at is making sense. Like... Notice that we just said World War II had a ton of post-launch weapons. Look who the developer was on Call of Duty World War II. That was Sledge. Sledge is the post-launch content goats. Did I say that right? I don't even know if I said that right.
One of the best things that I feel Modern Warfare 3 brought to the table with the Call of Duty franchise that we hadn't seen before is a constant, steady stream of conversion kits, which came in the form of aftermarket parts. Throughout the entire life cycle of this game, we got effectively like a new gun almost every single week. Now, some weeks it was an attachment instead, or a blueprint or a camo instead, but for most of the weeks of this game's life cycle, we got an aftermarket part that would be considered a weapon conversion. So effectively, it's like getting a new gun almost every week. And in order to do that, you had to complete your weekly challenges, which just made things very engaging. Every single week, I was excited for Wednesdays because there was almost always a new aftermarket part to unlock by completing those weekly challenges.
I love the way that he explained that.
First time ever that I've actually got excited to complete my weekly challenges in a Call of Duty game. And then on top of that, they just had a steady stream of constant events going on with the game. In fact, I don't believe there was much downtime at all between any of the events. There's almost always some form of an event going on in Modern Warfare 3.
Almost at all times.
I will admit, some were more interesting than others, and some of them did seem like they were kind of fillers. Like, they weren't really that engaging or exciting. It was basically just like, earn XP while this event is active. And you.
I forgot to say this in my goddamn review yesterday. The prestige, you know what, I'm going to go write it in a comment right now. Give me a second.
Rewards for
Let's listen to Ace, and I'm going to go do this.
I personally prefer the ones where you have to actually engage with challenges. But in either case, I would say this is the first time in the franchise where I truly felt they were treating the game from a player's perspective like a game as a service, even though for years now they've been treating their monetization like it was a game as a service.
It's a really good way of explaining that.
I feel we also got very good post-launch support as far as constant updates and generally really good responsiveness from
TXNL Vision. Appreciate the tier 1 dudes. Tier 1s actually help out the channel way more than you'd think. So anyone tier 1 subbing, I really appreciate you. If we get to 100 tier 1 subs 3 months in a row, it actually increases my revenue on Twitch, like the sub split, which is a really big deal. So yeah, I appreciate that, dude. I need to write this. One thing I forgot to say about MP. What were they called? Prestige camos, where you just need a billion XP on all weapons, were boring. Concept was good, but XP challenges are just boring. We'll go all caps on boring. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I don't even know if that sentence made sense or sentences, but go like the comment. Unfortunately, Man of Stealth, the gifted subs do not count for the tier 1. I can actually put a counter up on the stream for tier 1 subs, and we'll probably do that at launch because we'll try to get it over the next couple months. But yeah, unfortunately, the gifted subs do not count for that. They have to be unique tier 1 subs, which is dumb. But anyway.
From Sledgehammer. It was very obvious that Sledgehammer is keeping a finger on the pulse of the community, and they made tons of changes throughout the year that were
like we'd be well over it if prime subs and gifted subs and everything like that actually counted, but it's only unique tier 1.
Just very player focused and trying to fine tune and resolve some of the issues that the community was having. Like the first thing that pops into my mind, since it's fairly fresh, is map variants. For a while, those variant maps were kind of flooding the map pool, and it seemed like it was also affecting map rotation. And it was annoying when you would have a vote option for the base version of a map or a variant version of that same map. That was kind of annoying to run into. And Sledgehammer saw that the community was not happy with this, and they changed it. They put those variant maps into their own playlist, and they separated them from the regular quick play rotation. And that's just one of many examples throughout the year where it was obvious that Sledgehammer was paying attention to what the community was talking about, and they made adjustments accordingly. On top of that, as somebody that covers the weapon balancing in very great detail every time there's any weapon balancing change, I really appreciate the quality and level of detail that went into their patch notes. Yes, they made a few mistakes here or there, and I did catch issues throughout the year where they messed up on a few things on the patch notes. That's an important thing to Ace, so that's like, I see why he's putting that in his videos. When I would make my video and I would point those things out, typically within the hour of my video going out, somebody from Sledgehammer would reach out to me privately on Twitter to either correct their mistake or better explain what they were actually talking about in the patch notes if something was unclear.
That's cool.
And then often when I go back to the patch notes, I would see that they made an adjustment in the patch notes as well to reflect that. So for me, throughout Modern Warfare 3, it was obvious that Sledgehammer actually cares about the community and they're invested in the community.
They do. They deserve to be able to make their own game.
All of the Call of Duty studios out there. And while I've always viewed Sledgehammer as the best when it comes to community engagement and responsiveness, they push that to the next level throughout Modern Warfare 3's life cycle, and I really want to give them props for that. While they obviously didn't listen to absolutely every whim of the community and they didn't do everything that we asked them to do, the fact is they did a very good job with this area. After that, let's talk about maps a little bit. And while maps is an area where I also have some criticism, and I will be talking about certain aspects of this in the What They Did Wrong video, I also have some good things to say about the maps. Like, the original brand new maps that came post-launch for this were generally quite good. And there were some genuinely excellent original maps that they added to this game, like Grime or 6-Star, Meat. If you like the smaller maps, Meat is a really nice small map.
I don't love Meat.
Was solid, Grease, Rio, Yard, Vista. All of these were excellent, brand new, original maps that we've never seen before in Call of Duty, and they did a really good job with those maps. In fact, for many of them, I'd be happy to see those remastered in a future Call of Duty game, like maybe Sledgehammer's next COD, for instance. I would love for them to bring some of these maps back because they played really good. And then on top of that, when it comes to maps, there was just a ton of variety. Not only was there a massive quantity of maps, so there's a ton of different maps to choose from, there was also a great variety in how each of the maps played. They didn't all feel like cookie cutter maps that played basically the same. And then on top of that, thematically, they were very different as well. Each map really seemed to have its own vibe and its own general feeling to it.
Vista and Grime are two of the best maps in COD in the last 5 years, at least in my opinion. Vista, I can picture
it, and I really like that. Now, I will say not every single brand new original map was a masterpiece or was even good. There were a couple not so great ones mixed in there, but I would say on average there were far more good original maps than bad original maps that they brought to the table with this, and a couple of them were genuinely top tier in my opinion. And on a related topic here, I did want to mention I like the fact that they had a dedicated small map mosh pit in this game, because that's something we didn't really see much of previously. It was usually just like
honestly, screw just shipment playlists. Small map mosh pit is the way it should be, and I hope that's what they do in Black Ops 6. They don't just have Nuketown 24/7 constantly. I really hope that that is a thing.
Shipment or Nuketown 24/7. Then like Modern Warfare 2019 would do like Shoot the Ship, for instance, so it was like 2 small maps in rotation, but it's literally just 2. Whereas in Modern Warfare...
Can you hear me? I think I fixed it. No, I think the cable on my Go XLR is loose. Yeah, I got a device error and then I unplugged it and plugged it back in and it fixed. So let's try playing this video and see what happens.
Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of that unless I really need to just grind out something really quickly. I personally prefer playing in the regular quick play modes, but I also did like that the small map mosh pit was always there for me if I ever did want to just blast through some challenges really quickly. And there was actually some variety there. It wasn't just shipment. As for the next topic, let's talk about carry forward a little bit. And this is again going to be one of those areas where I absolutely have some criticisms of how they handle carry forward and just carry forward in general. But at the same time, carry forward does have some pros attached to it as well. And one of the big ones is pretty obvious. Any of the cosmetics you earned or purchased in Modern Warfare 2 carried forward into Modern Warfare 3. And therefore,
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about that carry forward content. He's saying that this is a good thing. I agree. But this also comes in and adds a lot of bloat to the game. Right? Like, we are now at a point where things are carrying over to Warzone. We now have Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, and Black Ops 6 weapons all coming into Warzone. Like, yeesh.
Actually had way more value than they've ever had before in the Call of Duty franchise, because for every year before that in the franchise, all of your items were tied to that one game and one game only, outside of Warzone, of course, but that's a different thing. Now, for me personally, I don't really care too much about that. I don't buy bundles. I don't really care what my gun looks like a whole lot.
Flooded, that's the problem with it. Yeah, I agree with that.
I care about the gameplay itself. I typically even just use default character models. Like, I don't care about any of that personally.
Neither do I. I'm with you there, Ace.
I can appreciate the fact that for many people, this was a big positive. And in that sense, it was very consumer friendly to allow those things to carry over an extra year because we had a back-to-back sequel. Additionally, with Carry Forward, they did bring some of the better Modern Warfare 2 maps forward, and I thought that was nice as well, especially because those Modern Warfare 2 maps had a tendency to play significantly better in Modern Warfare 3 compared to Modern Warfare 2. Okay. And then the other thing with Carry Forward that I've already kind of touched on in this video is just the fact that it added a ridiculous amount of playable content to the game, because even though Modern Warfare 3 on its own without Carry Forward had a respectable amount of playable content, with the Carry Forward,
curious in his next video if he says some negative stuff about this. That just pushed things to the
next level when it came to the quantity of playable content that we had. And this leads me to sort of the final section of this video. It's going to be a fairly big section, but this is the fact that with Modern Warfare 3, they just fixed so many of the issues and addressed so many of the complaints that people had throughout the life cycle of Modern Warfare 2, especially in relation to the gameplay itself. I would say the biggest negative thing you see about Modern Warfare 3 online is it's just a DLC, or it's a glorified DLC of Modern Warfare 2. That's what I made my video about. And while there are elements of that argument that I can agree with, and I will be talking about in the What They Did Wrong video, when it comes to gameplay, I simply can't agree with that at all.
Completely agree with
the gameplay of Modern Warfare 3 is very different from the gameplay of Modern Warfare 2. And I have seen some people say otherwise and say that this game plays basically the same as Modern Warfare 2. It's basically the same game when we're talking about gameplay. But the only way I can see you arriving at that conclusion is if you play the game at a very basic level and you willfully ignore the massive differences in the gameplay design philosophy that we see in Modern Warfare 3 compared to Modern Warfare 2. There is very little in common between the two games if we're just looking at the gameplay design. So let's go through the list of at least some of the main points here that Modern Warfare 3 massively improved or just totally changed from Modern Warfare 2. The first thing is the perk system. I thought the vest system was pretty interesting with Modern Warfare 3.
Honestly,
still not my favorite perk system.
Don't think it's a good perk system, but it's better than what Modern Warfare 2 had.
Of all time. I would rather see more of a pick 10 gunsmith hybrid approach. But at the end of the day, the vest system was interesting, and it was something new and unique, and it was so much better than what we were stuck with in Modern Warfare 2, which was that charged perk system where you didn't even have all your perks when you first spawn into a game. That alone made quite a big difference in gameplay. Additionally, like I mentioned toward the beginning of the video, Modern Warfare 3 gave us far more viable options for aggressively challenging enemies that Modern Warfare 2 was definitely lacking in. Then looking into some of the details, we actually had centered point of aim in Modern Warfare 3 when you first aim down sight.
I forgot how bad Modern Warfare 2 was.
That wasn't there right at launch, but it is something that they fixed over time that Infinity Ward introduced. They significantly reduced the amount of sway, gun shake, and muzzle smoke when you're in a gunfight, so gunfights themselves feel very different in Modern Warfare 3 compared to Modern Warfare 2. And that's not even mentioning the time to kill difference between the two games, which also has a significant impact on gameplay. Also, most of the Modern Warfare 3 attachments were actually worth using, and they rarely make your gun just straight up worse. Whereas in Modern Warfare 2, it was often in your best interest to not use all 5 attachment slots, because many of the attachments would just make your gun...
I will say might be the biggest thing that Black Ops 6 took from Modern Warfare 2 and was like, yeah, we need to do a better job than that, because they are doing the complete opposite, where most attachments are just good. Now, they do need to fix the descriptions in some of them, but yeah, that was another problem in Modern Warfare 2.
And not only that, we also got the advanced stat screen in Modern Warfare 3, and that was excellent for helping you create your builds, and also it was excellent in pointing out just how terrible Infinity Ward's design approach was to their attachment selection on their guns. Because when you look at those Modern Warfare 2 specific attachments, like barrels and stocks, for instance, the balance on those was laughably bad, whereas with the Modern Warfare 3 attachments, they were generally quite balanced and good and worthwhile to support the particular playstyle you were going for. On top of that, something they eventually did with Modern Warfare 3 that was a very welcome thing is they brought back streak looping, so you can earn multiple sets of streaks in the same life as long as you keep that streak going.
That was just temporary,
Again,
right?
Wasn't there at launch, but it is something that they did improve over time.
Did they continue
After that? Spawns. The spawns are not perfect by any means.
Did they continue that, or did that get removed? Where you could loop streaks?
In Modern Warfare 3, I think they're still struggling with that newer version of the spawn system that Modern Warfare 2019 introduced. But I would also say, especially after Modern Warfare 3, that Sledgehammer seems to have the best handle on that spawn system overall. And it was a massive improvement coming from
sounds like Ace like
Modern Warfare 2 to Modern Warfare 3. And you can really see that when playing the Modern Warfare 2 maps in Modern Warfare 3. It's one of the reasons
they're still
that
in Modern Warfare 3. Okay.
So much better in this game than they did in the previous year. And that's really where I think you can see the very clear differences. If you play on a Modern Warfare 2 carry forward map in Modern Warfare 3, and let's just say you even use a Modern Warfare 2 gun for pure consistency's sake, and then you compare that to playing that same match with the same gun on that same map in Modern Warfare 2, well, visually, if you're not in a gunfight, it may take you a second to figure out which game is which. The moment you actually watch a little bit of gameplay, you see some gunfights take place, and you see how the character is moving and how things are playing and flowing,
going with the fact that he's
massive difference between Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3.
The gameplay is not a DLC.
At least, it's a vastly superior experience in Modern Warfare 3 compared to Modern Warfare 2.
I think everyone just hates Infinity Ward.
That's going to be a good place to leave this video. I'm sure I missed some little things here or there. It's one of those things where it's at the end of the year, I'm looking like big picture, looking back on the game. And as a result, a lot of the smaller things can easily fall through the cracks. And this is going to go for both of these videos, what they did right and what they did wrong. But at the end of the day, something I've been saying through most of the life cycle of this game, and I stand behind it to this date, in my opinion, Modern Warfare 3 is the best 6v6 Call of Duty experience we've had in the modern era of COD. So from Modern Warfare 2019 and on,
that's high praise.
This is my favorite Call of Duty game in this era. Now, I don't like comparing modern era CODs with older era CODs, simply because there was a big shift in how the game was handled, and as a result, it feels like they kind of redefined the franchise at that point, and they're not really directly comparable. But when it comes to this modern era, Modern Warfare 3 is my favorite Call of Duty, closely followed by Black Ops Cold War. I do also like Cold War, but the reason I put Cold War behind Modern Warfare 3...
Streaks, is it the streaks?
Is the streak system. I really didn't like the streak system in that game, whereas I really like the normal score streak system in Modern Warfare 3. As well as the gameplay itself and the level of support that we got with the gameplay. So I do think Sledgehammer definitely deserves some props for this game this time around. I think overall for 6v6, they did an incredible job with what they were given. Now with that, again, everything I said in this video is just my opinions. And this
Alright, Ace, I've had enough of this positive bullcrap. Time to go to your channel and go to the negative bullcrap. Let's go.
What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today it's time for part 2 of my final review for Modern Warfare 3. In the first part, we talked about what Modern Warfare 3 did right and the things I liked about the game. Today's video is going to be the opposite, where I talk about what Modern Warfare 3 did wrong in my opinion, and the things that I didn't like about this game. Now, a few things to cover before we get into this. Just like with the first episode, these are all just my opinions. Feel free to disagree. If you do, please let me know why you disagree down below.
I will.
Also, something that I feel is important to mention here is I actually do like Modern Warfare 3. In fact, in my opinion, this is the best Call of Duty game we've had in quite a few years now. It is my favorite COD in the modern era of COD. And therefore, even though this video may end up being longer than the first video, that often is the case, that's typically just due to the fact that it takes longer to explain why I don't like something, compared to basically just listing out things that I do like, since that doesn't require nearly as much explanation. Also, just a quick note I wanted to throw in here, just because I'm doing these final review videos, that doesn't mean that I'm completely done with Modern Warfare 3 content. It's likely you'll still see a few Modern Warfare 3 videos sprinkled in between now and the release of Black Ops 6.
Fair enough.
I just really wanted to get this final review up, and
on main channel for me, I think I'm done with Modern Warfare 3. After my review came out yesterday, I think I'm done.
With that out of the way, let's dive into this, and let's address the big elephant in the room. And this is by far the #1 piece of criticism that I see directed toward Modern Warfare 3, and that is, this game is just a DLC for Modern Warfare 2. It's a glorified DLC, it's a $70 DLC. And with this topic, there are absolutely elements of this that I agree with. Now, I did discuss this in part 1 of this final review series.
Multiplayer
and in that,
at
I
launch
mentioned
for
that
sure.
gameplay-wise, I totally disagree with this statement. Modern Warfare 3 plays very drastically different from Modern Warfare 2. In fact, within the context of the Call of Duty franchise...
Okay. Here's the problem with that statement. And I didn't say this during the first part because we were staying positive, but now we're negative. So let's get negative. Where I disagree with this is that if you look from the outside in, if you are someone who does not consistently play Call of Duty, if you're a casual, if you're a filthy casual, I don't think the filthy casuals will actually see the difference in gameplay between Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3. I don't think they will. Call me crazy, because we all do, but I don't think they will.
As I would say the gameplay design philosophies were polar opposites with Modern Warfare 2 compared to Modern Warfare 3. So from a gameplay perspective, which I care about most, I would say no, Modern Warfare 3 does not play like a DLC for Modern Warfare 2. However, I do agree with elements of this, and I do agree that this is an area that really significantly held this game back from reaching its true potential.
I should have said this in my review yesterday as well. Modern Warfare 2, this is why I didn't, because it wasn't a review of Modern Warfare 2, but Modern Warfare 2 screwed up so bad that most people didn't even give Modern Warfare 3 a shot, which honestly, fair enough.
So this game had the same awful user interface as Modern Warfare 2. This is something that we were complaining about throughout the entire life cycle of Modern Warfare 2, and they made basically no improvements to this, or very few improvements to this, from Modern Warfare 2 into Modern Warfare 3. We also had Carry Forward, which did have some positives, and I talked about that in the first video as well, but Carry Forward also came with downsides. When you have the same operator skins and weapons and attachments and many other assets as literally the previous game that you were just playing, there's definitely a lack of a new game feel with Modern Warfare 3. It didn't really have its own unique art style or art direction, and while the game played very different, it didn't distinguish itself visually from Modern Warfare 2. In fact, just as an example of that, if you show me a clip of a Modern Warfare 2 gun on a Modern Warfare 2 map in Modern Warfare 2 or Modern Warfare 3, since there was carry forward for both guns as well as certain maps,
my God.
Honestly, it would take me a couple seconds to tell you which game is which when you show me these images.
I don't even know if I can do it. That's got to be Modern Warfare 2, right?
If I look closely enough, I could figure it out, but you would...
That's got to be Modern Warfare 3. Am I wrong? Like, I legitimately cannot tell. And it's my job to tell. That is insane. And that is why people call it DLC.
Would have to look closely to figure that out. Now, in saying that, the moment you actually watch some gameplay, you see the person moving around, you see gunfights taking place, it becomes way more obvious.
This is exactly what I was just saying. This is exactly what I was just saying. Casual players, even with the gameplay, are not going to be able to tell
which, because they do play very different. But there was absolutely a lack of that new game feel when it came to the visuals and the heads-up display, for instance, in the game when you were actually in a match. On top of that, just circling back to this carry forward a little bit, well, on the positive side, it was consumer friendly in the sense that the skins that you bought in Modern Warfare 2, they maintain their value over multiple Call of Duty games, which we've never seen before in Call of Duty. At the same time, I really didn't like that right at the launch of Modern Warfare 3, we had tons and tons of wacky out there skins from Modern Warfare 2. And it's the same skins that I was looking at over the past year with Modern Warfare 2 already. Everywhere. It didn't have that typical tone that a Call of Duty game will have at launch that is very unified and feels like a brand new game with a unified tone and vision. I, of course, expect that to degrade over time as they add more silly skins over time, because that's just what they do in Call of Duty. But at launch for a Call of Duty, I generally like seeing a really cohesive art style at least, and I just wasn't seeing that at launch for this game. And I think that's one of the downsides of carry forward, at least in my eyes. Now, on top of that, with them carrying everything forward, I found that the attachment selection, since they carried forward attachments as well, it got way overcomplicated, and it was just an absolute mess. You had so many attachments in the game that were very similar to each other. They filled essentially the same role.
Brief question. I don't think anyone knows this answer, but brief question. What is the plan for attachments for Black Ops 6 weapons in Warzone? Are you able to use all of the Modern Warfare 2 and 3 attachments, or only Black Ops attachments?
But they had very slightly different stat changes, and it just felt very unnecessarily complex when it came to this. And most of that unnecessary complexity came from the fact that they carried forward the Modern Warfare 2 attachments, while ensuring that Modern Warfare 3 had its own very unique set of attachments to play with as well. Now, at the very least, when it came to this complexity, having advanced stats was a nice step forward from Modern Warfare 2, so it did help us at least kind of parse through those attachments and find out which ones were actually best. But at the end of the day, that didn't really solve the issue, it just made it a little bit easier to deal with. Additionally, when it came to the Modern Warfare 2 guns carrying over into Modern Warfare 3, especially early on in this game's life cycle, with the way they balance things, most of the Modern Warfare 2 guns were just not viable choices compared to the Modern Warfare 3 guns.
Yeah, we all know that.
Like, I'm not surprised that they wanted to make sure that the Modern Warfare 3 guns would stand out a little bit compared to the Modern Warfare 2 ones, because they want you using the new and exciting things. But at the same time, I do feel the gap between those was just way too wide early on. These days, things have gotten better. They've definitely buffed up a lot of the Modern Warfare 2 guns and fixed much of the visual recoil and stuff that those had. And I would say most of the Modern Warfare 2 guns are at least viable now, but there's definitely still some pretty bad ones in there that never did get fixed to the point where I would even consider them to be viable choices in this game. Next up on the It's Just a DLC topic, at launch, there were 0 original maps in Modern Warfare 3. Instead, we got remasters of the 16 launch maps from the original Modern Warfare 2 from way back in the day. And while I personally thought it was pretty cool and nostalgic to be playing on those maps,
you get bored of them. You know
at the
them
end
already.
of the day, there were 0 original maps for this game. And that absolutely is a point against Modern Warfare 3 as well. Ideally, you'd want to see mainly brand new original maps so it feels like a brand new original game. And then finally, just another little point here on the topic of it's just a DLC. One big thing that I found frustrating is the firing range. Throughout the entire life cycle of Modern Warfare 3, there was quite a bit of criticism directed at the firing range and how it was handled, and there was plenty of feedback provided on how something like that could improve.
See, this is one that's not a big deal to me.
I was quite disappointed to find that the firing range was essentially the exact same thing, at least feature-wise. It was the same thing that we were used to in Modern Warfare 2, and it's just things like that that I found to be disappointing. So absolutely, in this negative section, I can sympathize with the it's just a DLC argument, at least when we're talking about visual identity with the game, as well as the lack of original maps. Next up, while the post-launch support for the 6v6 game mode was incredible this time around, the same definitely can't be said for the other multiplayer modes like War, Ground War, and 2v2 Gunfight. When it came to the War game mode, I was excited that they brought that back. I really enjoyed that in COD World War
This is a good point.
II. It was a nice change of pace sort of game mode, and I thought it was really interesting, and I honestly quite like both War maps that they ended up bringing to the game. However, we only ever...
Okay, Kev, it's super weird that you say that. You just said you should do COD trivia quizzes. I literally have one of those queued up to do on stream today. That's so weird that you said that.
2, one at launch and then one at the launch of Season 2. Beyond that point, there was 0 support for the War game mode. Similarly, for Ground War and Invasion, the battle maps, we didn't see any post-launch support for these whatsoever. We were just stuck with the maps that we had at launch. And I would say the fact that there was no post-launch support for this one hurt even more, because at the very least, it seems they could have brought forward some of the Modern Warfare 2 battle maps. They did carry forward a few of these 6v6 maps. Why couldn't they also do that with a couple of the battle maps, just to fill out the rotation a little bit for those that are into Ground War and Invasion? And then also with 2v2, there was very little support for that as well compared to previous years with
Give me gunfight tournaments.
Mode. And here's the deal. For me, I prefer 6v6. All I really want to play is 6v6. I'm not really interested in playing those other game modes. However, they are a part of the game, and I'm sure many people bought the game, at least somewhat because those other modes
I don't care about
existed.
Ground War, though.
And therefore, if you're going to put them in the game, there should at least be a bare minimum level of support. And
yeah, so this is a solid point. Like, if you have to remember, people might be buying the game for those modes, which, yeah, probably pretty rare, but it is possible.
Don't feel they even reach that. Additionally, since we are talking about other modes outside of 6v6, which is where most of my attention is, I do at least want to give a brief mention in this video about the campaign. I felt the campaign was not very good at all.
Garbage. It was
While they
garbage.
were an interesting idea, I felt like they leaned way too heavily into those open combat missions.
Yup.
And I think the campaign would have been way better with just 1 or 2 of those. Also, just in general, the length of the campaign was way too short, and the story was not great. And I do feel this is another area that held this game back and held its reputation back as well. After that, let's just dive into a bunch of random things that I've got jotted down here. One of them is inconsistent seasonal content. If you look at the total amount of content that we got post-launch, it was very impressive this time around for Modern Warfare 3, and I've got no complaints about that. However, I didn't like how inconsistent they were from one season to the next. Like Season 3, we got
this is interesting. This is interesting. Okay, so Season 1... I see what he's saying. I see what he's saying. So, Season 3, holy, and then it just died down. Like you can see what he's talking about. And I wouldn't say that's inconsistency. I would say that's the game coming to the end of its life cycle.
6v6 maps. That was amazing. So many maps in one season. But then for Season 5 and 6 combined, we got 3 6v6 maps that weren't variants. And personally, I would definitely prefer seeing a lot more consistency and spreading that out a little bit more. So each season has a certain minimum level of expectation when it comes to content, especially map content. Another thing I wasn't a fan of with this game, although this isn't really new with this Call of Duty game, it's been around for a little while. This is inconsistent.
Do you guys see the pumpkin there? Why is there a pumpkin there?
Consistent connection quality. I know for many people they had constant packet bursts and stutters to the point where the game was almost unplayable. I saw some clips of people experiencing that, and it looked really bad. For me, I was lucky enough for that to not happen too often. I did get the odd bad match here or there.
Like, I get that it's for Halloween, but
things
there's not like a Halloween variant of this map.
Ran fairly smooth for me. However, my big issue was inconsistent ping.
They're just scattered around the map and they jump scare you?
I'd have a 20 millisecond ping. The next, I'd be at 70 milliseconds. The one after that, I'd be at 90 milliseconds. And it would just be bouncing all over the place. And it was so inconsistent with how the connection experience felt. And for one of the biggest FPS franchises in the world, that really shouldn't be happening. On top of this, and something that may or may not be related, at least in my case it didn't appear to be related, but for some people maybe it is, this is the fact that Modern Warfare 3 introduced forced texture streaming. Now, this is more likely a franchise-wide decision rather than something that Sledgehammer decided to just introduce into Modern Warfare 3, but I'm personally not a big fan of it. I think there should always be an option to have all of the high-resolution textures downloaded on your system, so there's no requirement for extra bandwidth being eaten up in order to get those textures.
Let's be honest, that was not a Sledgehammer decision.
I think having texture streaming as an option is excellent for those that don't have a whole lot of space to store high-resolution texture packs, but in my eyes, that should be an option, not something that's forced on you. After that, as we continue to go through these just random notes that I've got, spawns. Now, interestingly, I also put spawns in the what they did right video, and the reason behind that is I feel Sledgehammer has the best handle over the modern spawn system.
They're the best ones, but they're still garbage. Got you.
And as a result, I feel they deserve some credit there. Like, it could be so much worse. I feel the spawns were way worse in Modern Warfare 2. However, in saying that, I still feel like they're just not great. And there's especially certain modes and map combinations where the spawns are pretty bad still. And therefore, I feel it is worth a mention here because that can absolutely impact how the game plays, depending on the map and mode that you're playing, of course. Then let's talk about armory credits a little bit. This is a new system that they introduced with Modern Warfare 3.
In my review.
And with this, at launch, just in case you guys forgot, you couldn't unlock all of the playable content. So all of the guns and the equipment and the score streaks.
New system.
You couldn't unlock those without earning armory credits. You could reach that maximum level for your military ranks, and you still wouldn't have everything unlocked. So in order to unlock those, you had to complete daily challenges, and then you had to also get wins. For every win that you got, you would get an armory credit. And for me, I'm not a big fan of locking launch playable content behind armory credits.
Agreed.
I think all of the playable content, all of the class items, all of the scores...
It was clear that that system was put into the game for post-launch content, but they also included launch content, and that sucked. So I think the armory credit system was good for post-launch, but at launch, having everything locked behind them was stupid.
Streaks, that should all be available within your military ranks. And then after that, I'm totally on board with armory credits for like post-launch content that you missed from previous seasons.
Agreed.
Or for various cosmetic items, for instance. I think that's totally fine. It was mainly the fact that various playable items were locked behind that, and it did take quite a long time to unlock every playable item in the game. And looking back at it toward the end of the life cycle, you might have forgot how much of a grind it actually was at launch to unlock every single playable class item in the game through this armory credit system. For many people, this took several weeks, when normally this would take either like a few days or maybe a week for some people. So while I think it was an interesting thing they tried out, and I think there's some potential there for the future, I didn't really like how they handled the armory credit system overall. Next up, with Modern Warfare 3, there were lots of little bugs and a lot of new ones that were introduced to this game as well. And that does happen every year with Call of Duty. I feel like every Call of Duty struggles with its own issues and its own bugs.
It'll have its own bugs, it'll have its own glitches, it'll have its own broken weapons.
Things like the latency widget just being NA for, I believe, an entire season. That was kind of frustrating, especially for console players where we can't just open our scoreboard and see what our ping is. If we wanted to check our ping, we had to go into the start menu and then scroll through a few options in order to see what our ping was in that game, and that was just frustrating to deal with for as long as we had to deal with that. Also, for many people, there were various guns or attachments that just wouldn't unlock for them, and it was bugged out. There was nothing they could do to unlock it. On top of that, there's various attachments that weren't actually applying in game. I'm looking at the Jack Jawbreaker kit, for instance, on the KV Broadside. For I believe it was months, you could put a muzzle attachment on that gun. It would take up one of your attachment slots. If you went in the firing range, that muzzle was on there, it was working properly. But when you load it into an actual match, that muzzle was nowhere to be found. It wasn't on your gun. You weren't getting the effects of it.
In other words,
and that one took a long time for them to get on top of and fix. Additionally, at one point, they broke a lot of the animations, so there were weird overlapping animations and stuff that were happening. Some audio bugs took place as well throughout the game's life cycle. Just lots of little things sprinkled in there throughout the year. To my knowledge, every single one of them ended up getting resolved at some point.
And
but some of them
you guys are right in chat right now. The armory credits were 100% put in for player retention.
Go on for a while. Then let's talk about some clear balancing issues that were just never resolved. Now, overall, they did do a ton of weapon balancing, a ton of perk balancing, vest balancing, but I still feel there were many things that were just left ignored, essentially. So, like, there's still a good handful of useless Modern Warfare 2 guns. Like, there's just no reason to use those particular Modern Warfare 2 guns
is the right
because
word.
They are significantly outclassed by all of the other guns in that weapon class. There's also various perks that I just feel never saw any love, and they were totally useless. Like the threat identification system, for instance, which is the super watered down version of High Alert. that relies on the enemy using a certain type of attachment. Like,
that's why when I started using the like high alert specialist, combat specialist in Black Ops 6, I was like, holy crap, this is incredible. Because like it gave you so much information that just wasn't available in this.
Or a thermal sight, for instance. That perk was incredibly weak compared to everything it was paired against. Also, things like the LR detector, the signal jammer. There's just a good handful of items in this game where I could pull them out and be like, why would anybody ever use this over the alternatives? And I can't really think of any good reasons for it. After that, let's talk about footsteps a little bit, and more specifically, covert sneakers and the ninja vest.
Okay, interesting.
In this game, covert sneakers and ninja were absolutely crutches, which I also mentioned in the What They Did Right video, because I appreciate the fact that those crutches at least existed in the game, because I think the gameplay would be much worse off without them. But at the same time, I just felt like they never really nailed the balance with default footstep audio.
And that's hard to do.
The solution to covert sneakers being a crutch is quite clear. And that is
with the improvements that they just put into Black Ops 6 with the sneakers, or sorry, with the footstep noises, I think, again, these perks are going to be crutches because of how good the audio is becoming.
Nerf covert sneakers or anything. That is to look at why everybody is using covert sneakers and target the root cause of that issue. And the root cause is default footstep audio is too loud. So if you're not using covert sneakers,
but again, we have to wait to see.
Though you're at too much of a disadvantage if you're moving around the map. Now, I know they did do some footstep tuning throughout the game's lifecycle, but in my eyes, they just didn't quite find that perfect balance with base footstep audio to the point where people would feel confident branching outside of covert sneakers, even in respawn game modes. And so that is an area that I feel belongs in this video. I think it's something that they just didn't quite get nailed down, and it would have made a big difference to open up that boot category more and allow for a lot more variety in there, especially in the higher skilled lobbies where everybody's got a headset and they're listening very carefully for any footstep audio. And that's where we're going to leave it for this random miscellaneous section where I'm just kind of throwing in a bunch of random points.
Every time
Next,
I say shredding, he dies.
Let's talk about map rotation a little bit. This is another issue I had throughout a lot of the life cycle of this game. In the game's current state, it's in a much better place now, but we had to deal with this for quite some time. Something I noticed with this game after a couple seasons is many of the maps that were in the game were simply missing from rotation, at least for various game modes, and therefore it was kind of frustrating knowing that there were a ton of maps in this game, but you only ever had access to a handful of those maps within your preferred game mode. Like for me, Domination is my preferred game mode, and you would think a pretty standard mode like Domination would include every 6v6 map in the game, and that just wasn't the case for a huge part of this game's life cycle.
Weird.
And even to this day, there are a few maps in the game that I haven't seen in literally months. I haven't seen them pop up, not even once.
So like, yeah.
And that's obviously frustrating because you're not taking advantage of the full amount of map content that's available in the game. And another issue that kind of ties in with this is map variance. I've got to say, after dealing with map variance for a year with Modern Warfare 3,
I agree with this.
I'm just not a fan. And outside of specific seasonal maps, I just hope
if you put in a map variant, I'm okay with that. But what it should be is you get that map. So say, for example, they put in 3 variants of Nuketown into Black Ops 6. They put in regular Nuketown, Night Nuketown, and Christmas Nuketown. When you launch into game, you pick Nuketown, and it's going to give you a random version of that Nuketown map every single time that you play it. I'm fine with it in that case. But if it's like popping up and showing you all these random versions and it just bloats up the game and it doesn't count, like it shouldn't count as an extra map. It should be a variant or a time difference or something like that of the map that already exists. Am I making sense there?
Like, I'm totally fine if they have a Christmas variant map or like a Halloween or a St. Patrick's Day variant map. That's cool. I'm totally on board with those. But in Modern Warfare 3, we just saw tons of crazy map variants. And for a big portion of the life cycle, this just diluted the map pool a lot. Again, this is something they did resolve, and now those variant maps are relegated to their own playlist and quick play.
Wait,
but it's just one of those things where, at least for me, it just felt super unnecessary to have these variant maps, and I was totally fine never playing on them. In fact, I preferred not playing on the variant maps for the most part. The one exception is Skid Row, because it has better lighting than Skid Row. So that's map rotation. Next up, I want to talk about a huge missed opportunity. And I know it's a little strange to criticize them for something they didn't do rather than things that they did do with the game, but this is one of those things where I fully expected this to come at some point throughout this game's life cycle, and it would have made a huge difference in my enjoyment of the game. and this is Specialist.
Oh.
And I'm not talking about like specialist abilities.
No, I know
I'm
what
talking about the Specialist
streaks.
Strike package that was introduced in the original Modern Warfare 3, which is one of the reasons we kind of
that would have made sense,
this version
actually.
of Modern Warfare 3. And this is where you have the ability to sacrifice earning your kill streak rewards, and instead, as you go on a streak in the same life, you earn more perks until you get your Specialist bonus, which gives you all of the perks in the game. And then, of course, if you die, it resets that, and you have to do it all over again. This is one of those areas where, for Modern Warfare 2, I could see why it wasn't really viable to make this work because of their horrible perk charging system that they had in that game. System. But in Modern Warfare 3, it could have worked. They could have made it work. And I know you can make the argument like, well, you can't wear multiple pairs of boots. First off, challenge accepted. Yes, I can. And second, I don't really care what the perk tiers are called. I don't care if they're called gloves or boots or gear. That naming system alone shouldn't have held them back from bringing an amazing feature to Modern Warfare 3. And also a feature that many of us...
I actually see why they didn't. Because the way that perks are kind of balanced in this game is with the vests, and trying to implement a specialist system with the vests would be relatively difficult. Like, they would have to do it individually for like class by class. Just the way that they have the perks designed would be very difficult to do specialist. It wouldn't be as easy as we've seen it in other games.
We're just begging for throughout the entire life cycle.
I agree, it would have been good in this game. I get what he's saying, but I also get why they didn't.
Forward by a noticeable margin, and also the replayability of the game would have shot through the roof. At least for me, that's my opinion. I really do like Specialist, and I'm so sad that we never got to experience that in this game. And this brings us to the final section of the video, and you're going to see this section on every one of these final review videos of what they did wrong in the past, 5 years now? This is, of course, their modern matchmaking system and disbanding lobbies. I'm not going to dive too deep into this since I've done...
Why didn't I put it in mind? Because it's not changing.
That way too much in the past already. And I will also say, in the game's current state, the matchmaking doesn't actually feel that bad. And I think that's because the player count has dropped off quite a bit. And the lower the player count, the less the matchmaking system is able to do as far as finding similarly skilled players, if you're an outlier player, that is. So at the moment, based on my recent experience with the game, the matchmaking isn't all that bad, but for much of the life cycle, I just felt it was way too strict. And while it was nice to get the white papers on that, where they went into a lot more detail with how they handled this, that was more of a Call of Duty thing than a Modern Warfare 3 thing, at the end of the day, I still don't like how they handle matchmaking in this game. I'm fine with SBMM existing. I'm not really happy with the state of SBMM in modern Call of Duties, though. Especially since you can never see where you stand or track your improvement over time within that system. Now, on top of that, and more importantly, disbanding lobbies. This is something we've been dealing with since the launch of Modern Warfare 2019, and in my eyes, this is the number...
Okay, am I crazy that sometimes in Modern Warfare 3, lobbies didn't disband? Am I crazy for saying that? Because I feel like sometimes it was like that.
Worst thing that they have done with the Call of Duty franchise as far as conscious design decisions. And I've gone over the reasons many times in the past, but some of the big ones, just the general sense of community isn't there anymore. You get into a lobby, you play against those people, and disband. After that game, you have no option to stay in that lobby. You have no option for that rematch. There's no time to form any sort of friendships or rivalries, whether that's using game chat or not. Even for people that don't use game chat, with persistent lobbies, there was always that sense of rivalry just with the gameplay itself. You would find that particular player that obviously became your rival, and there'd be a lot of back and forth over multiple games where you're trying to adapt to their playstyle while they're adapting to your playstyle. And then sometimes the teams get shuffled and you get to play with that player, and oftentimes the chemistry was there with that player. Again, not even using game chat, just through the gameplay alone, you'd form that sort of chemistry with other players because your playstyles just mesh really well together, and in many cases, that's how friendships are formed. And I'm talking real friendships.
He's talking about this makes me he's talking about the one that got away.
Just in-game friendships. All of that is essentially gone with disbanding lobbies. And then on top of that, connection consistency.
For a time you could
one of my
vote
big
to stay in a lobby. That is true. Yeah,
and
so they ran
much of that
tests
would have
with
gone
that.
away if we just had persistent lobbies, where once you get into a lobby, you're playing on that server with that consistent connection experience until you decide to leave that lobby. As it is right now, it rolls the dice for you. It takes that choice away from the player. There's no option for a rematch. There's no option to stay and play with people that you had fun playing with and against. Apparently the game knows what's best for you, so it pulls you out and it searches automatically every time. And I also feel that's one of the biggest reasons that modern SBMM is hated as much as it is in Call of Duty. If we had persistent lobbies, I don't think it would be as frustrating because there'd be a lot more consistency on a match-to-match basis. And there we go. That's all the detail I'm going to get into with that. Obviously, I have made entire videos talking about that in the past, diving into even more detail than that. But with that, that is going to wrap it up for today's video on what
clearly, after watching those 2 videos, Ace really liked Modern Warfare 3. I think that's like completely fair to say. And I think it came down to the influx of content over the year, right? Like, I think that he enjoyed having those weekly challenges, enjoyed having those weekly events, enjoyed having like the influx of content that isn't normally there in a Call of Duty multiplayer, especially. And you know what? This might be a big part of it. The multiplayer content was so horrible for Modern Warfare 2 that this year, no matter what came out, probably would have been better for Ace, because he just plays multiplayer, right? So that's probably another reason why this game felt so fresh for him. At least I could see that being a case to make. And you know what? Maybe next year is going to suck for him, even if the game is great and plays great. If there's not that content that was in Modern Warfare 3, he might not enjoy that. But I think seeing the people that stuck around in Modern Warfare 3 by the very end, most people did seem to really enjoy it. At least from what I've seen. All right. I got to take the sweater off because it's getting hot in here. So take off all your clothes. Let's close that. And I got 2 more videos to watch. More if you guys send me more, but yeah, we'll probably just watch 2 more videos. I'll probably end the stream a little bit early because I got some videos to make. I mean, I played Modern Warfare 3 a lot more than I played Modern Warfare 2. I'll say that, that's for sure.